Hello, and welcome back to the third video in the first series for FTC Inferno. As per usual, my name is Anton Benitsky, and special guest, Raj.
Raj
There you
joining us here. Yeah.
go. And today we will be covering, we'll be actually going to the document in part in Onshape, and we'll be going over how to interact with the UI, a general intro to the Part Studio and Assembly and Variable Studio tab, mouse control, the planes in Onshape, all the panels that you see right now, and just an intuitive talk about how CADing actually works and how to think about it. Also called designing with intent. All right. So now that you have that you are inside of a part studio or inside of a document, there are multiple tabs. It's so this kind of acts like a browser almost. Like you have tabs where you can do different things in each tab. You can add tabs by pressing this blue, um, Jesus, by pressing this gray plus button over here, and you'll see. So the most common tabs that you'll be creating is going to be Part Studio, Assembly, Variable Studio, and Folders. So folder is like the most intuitive one, right? It helps you organize things. It's pretty easy. You just kind of click on it, name it whatever you want, and now you can actually drag tabs into it. If you want to drag tabs out of it, you have to do this. You have to unpack. Um, and what you could also do is you can go into Tab Manager. Like if you have a lot of tabs right here, you can go into Tab Manager, and then you can. What I'm doing now is I'm pressing Command, and I'm pressing on both of the tabs. Right click, and you can add selection to folder, and it makes stuff really nice and easy to organize. There you go. All right. So that's this lower panel over here. And so a part studio is basically where you create parts. So imagine like a Lego assembly. Here is where you would actually create every single brick, every single um, I don't know any other Lego terminology. This is kind of sad. Raj, what is the other
I
Lego
mean, I feel
terminology?
like bricks is most of them. I mean, like maybe the sideways pieces, but
Yeah,
yeah, bricks is good.
bricks. Yeah. Um, and then assembly
Mm.
is where you actually import all the bricks and you actually start assembling your Lego set. Now, Variable Studio kind of doesn't really fall into the Lego metaphor. Variable Studio is kind of like in coding. You can create variables. You can do the same in Onshape as well. This will come up really useful with well anything that you will change with your design. We'll dive into that later, but very useful overall. All right, so let's go back to the Part Studio, and now I will actually start to cover mouse control. It's pretty simple. There's three things you can do. You can zoom, it's the scroll wheel. You can rotate the camera. This is the right mouse button. If you just click, press and hold. And the interesting thing with the rotate thing is it rotates around whichever point you select. So for example, see how I selected that point out in space and it rotates around it. If I select the origin, yes, this is the origin thing, it rotates around the origin. So yeah, same. And then there's also pan, which is when you press down and hold your scroll wheel and you kind of just drag your mouse. It's pan. With scroll, another thing is that it also scrolls like in wherever your mouse is hovering over. So, for example, if I'm hovering over this top left corner of the front plane, yes, this is called a plane. You can see that it zooms into that specific spot. Same with the origin. So that type of stuff. So yeah, so there's pan, rotate, and zoom. Now,
Yeah, I
very.
mean,
Oh yeah.
you can also use the cube in the top right for your views as well.
Yes. This playing cube here is another way to actually kind of uh, more smoothly focus onto the plane. So, for example, if you're making something on the right plane, you see how, like, right now the right plane is kind of 3D, right? You're not really looking perpendicularly to it. So what you can do is you can go into this plane cube over here, press the right plane, and then now you see that you're kind of steering perpendicular to it, also called normal. Another way to do this is you press on the right plane and you press N, and it's gonna look normal. You can also look into isometric view in the plane with the plane cube. You can rotate it as well. You can do whatever this is as well, but um, I usually use the plane cube just to focus on the right plane or the front plane, or go into these isometric views, which is where you press on kind of like the corner of the cube right here. So yeah, plane cube. Now, moving on to the panels in Part Studio. So this panel right here is where every edit that you make to your part will appear. So for example, if I make a sketch, which we'll get into that later, you'll see that appears in the feature. It's called the feature panel. It appears in the feature panel right here. So anything that you've created, any edit that you've made to your part or parts will appear in this panel right here. Same with parts over here. This is the parts panel. Every single part in your Part Studio will also appear here. If this panel right here is getting annoying, you can easily hide it by just pressing that button. Pretty easy. And this is the rollback bar. It's also pretty useful, and we will get into it later on. Raj, anything? Any questions, comments?
Nothing from me.
Cool. Now moving on to the upper panel, this is where you actually create features, or you basically edit your part. So the most commonly used ones will be sketch, extrude, a bit of revolute, and fillet chamfer. But the most common ones will be sketch and extrude, definitely by far. Those will be the most used ones, and we will get into that actually later in this video. So yeah, basically uppermost panel is where you make all the edits to your part. You can also see here that there's the undo and redo buttons, but you can also just easily do Command Z for undo and Shift Command Z for redo. I'm not a Windows user. Raj, are you a Windows user?
No, I'm not a Windows user either.
Yeah, so I don't know what those keybinds are for Windows, but you can just kind of hover over it and it should tell you. Here at the very top, it's pretty intuitive. Like here you can change some settings in your document. The most common tab that you'll click in this drop-down menu will be the workspace. I lied. Will be the workspace units, and here you'll be able to change the length default unit of your document, because you will actually have to dimension things in your Part Studio, and I would actually set it to inch right now, unless Raj, you have a different preference.
No, I think inch is good.
Cool. So yeah, and then like over here is the same thing that was on the homepage menu. Pretty simple, pretty intuitive. We already covered this bottom panel here. You actually do have some tools over here, like you have a tool that allows you to check the mass of every single part or every single assembly in your Part Studio. This also exists for the assembly, and we will use it later on as well. And there's also a show measure details tool, which basically allows you to measure the distance from one point to any other point. Very, very useful. We will also get into that later. Now, this is the right panel. Here you will be able to see all the variables tables that you've made. Again, we will get into that later as well. Same over here. Or wait, hold up. No, this is, we won't use this. I lied. This is where you actually see all the variable tables made in your document. And then here is actually in like kind of like a library for Onshape, and this is called the FTC insert tool. So as I mentioned in the last video, yes, Onshape does include apps, And this is an app that is somewhat useful for FTC because it actually allows you to access parts from your parts supplier and then easily kind of put them into your document. Raj, do you want to explain which part suppliers you'll be using?
Yeah, GoBuilder is pretty much the main part supplier. Like, yeah, I wouldn't really use any other parts. I mean, Rev, some electronics, but it's mostly GoBuilder.
And then this FTC insert tool will be used mainly in assembly. Um, this is one way to import parts. Another way is actually to use the insert tool. Again, we will get to that later on in the series. So, but right now I will show you how to actually add this insert tool. So if you search up Onshape app, just Onshape App Store. You click on Onshape App Store, and then you search up insert tool, I believe. There you go. And you see this. So you click on it, and then over here you should see like a blue subscription plan. And then keep following the prompts and say yes to whatever. I promise they will not steal any information. They will not steal any passwords. They haven't done that to me yet, so they won't do that to you probably. And then after you've finished this up, you can go back to your Onshape document, and if it doesn't appear here, you might have to like reload, and then if it doesn't appear again, you just have to wait for it to pop up. It should pop up eventually, and then when it does, you click on it and it shows you some more prompts which you say yes to. Just keep following it, and then you'll eventually get to this. And I do encourage you to play around with it and see what happens when you just kind of, you know, press on some random stuff. So yeah, and that's actually in general for CAD. The best way to learn CAD is just to practice and to explore what every single feature does. Command Z is your best friend in CAD. I promise you that. As long as it exists, nothing can go wrong. So just get creative and explore. All right, so now I wanted to go over intuitively how CADing works. So CADing is actually like in Blender, based on what I know, you can just kind of import like a cube and then easily just kind of edit it. But in CADing softwares like Onshape, you actually have to create the cube in 2D first, and then make edits to it. So imagine you have this 3D cube. To make this in Onshape, you actually have to look at it, look at what's called a cross section of the cube, from either the top view, the right view, or the front view. So I mean, a cube is the same. Also, a cross section is basically kind of a. Imagine like you cut this cube in half, kind of like that, and then if you kind of flip one side over and look at it towards you, what you should see is a square, right? You can also just look at it from the top view. Like if you look at it from the top, of course you're going to see a square, right? So what you first do in Onshape is you sketch this square out on a 2D plane, and then you use an extrude tool to add material to it to make it 3D. So um, it kind of is the opposite of Blender, I would say. You actually have to 2D sketch your object and then extrude it. What you can also, for more complex objects, you're going to have to like do minor edits on it in like on its different faces. But we'll definitely get into that in I think the next video actually. But yeah, so right now we're going to actually make a cube, so you actually see what I'm talking about. So going back to Onshape, to the document, let's create a cube. So first we have to sketch it in 2D. I will sketch it on the top view because you can't create a 2D sketch in 3D, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't just work at all. So I clicked on the top view, and so now I am perpendicular or normal to the top view, and then I click on the sketch tool, and then it asks me to select a sketch plane. So this is where I want to create my sketch, and I press on the top plane. Now you should see that your top panel over here actually changed, right? Now you have totally different tools and edits from what you saw before you made the sketch. This is because in a sketch you can't make any 3D objects because it's a 2D sketch, of course. So you have to work with 2D features. The most common ones that you will use will be line, rectangle, circle, and arc. Um, and then there's also like other tools that you can use here, but we'll definitely get into that later. So there in Onshape, there's also many different ways to create different things. For example, a cube or a square, as we know, is 4 lines. So I can select the line function, and then I can just press my mouse, go upwards, and then if you saw when I did that, you actually saw like this little symbol right next to like bottom right of my mouse. It's like this vertical line symbol. And you also see that my line is orange, kind of like a dotted. So this means that my line is perfectly vertical right now. And of course we want that for a cube because if it wasn't vertical, then it would have been a Raj, what's the correct terminology? A
Um, rotated cube,
Something like that. I don't even know. Prism? I don't know.
rhombus. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the design lead, guys. Anyway, so you see that it's a.
He's not the master of tapes.
Okay, buddy. All right. Um, so this means that my line is perfectly vertical, and of course, we want a perfectly vertical line. So if I press my left mouse again, you now see a blue line. So same with the other horizontal line that I want to make. See that little symbol bottom right of my mouse and the dotted orange line. This means that my line is perfectly horizontal. We want that. So I press again. Now this is kind of gets a bit interesting. If you see here, if we just place this line out right here, it'll be perfectly vertical, but if we connect it back to this point, it's not perfectly horizontal anymore. There are two different ways you can fix this. One will be to constrain. These are also called constraints, by the way, like the symbol. So right now my line is vertically constrained, right? But you want your next line to be horizontal to this point, right? So what you can do is you can hover over this point, and then now you see how there's like a orange dotted line going out. If you keep dragging your mouse along to the right until your blue vertical line snaps vertically, and then press, this means that this point is perfectly horizontal with this point, meaning that if you just connect those 2 points with a line, you will get a square. Now that was a bit kind of you know process intensive. So another way to create a square actually, and you can also drag and select and then press delete to delete stuff, by the way, is you press on corner rectangle. So if I press on corner rectangle and I press out in space, and I press again, you will see that it automatically creates a rectangle for me. So both ways work. It's just that one way is faster than the other. And this is your goal. Your goal is to find ways to create things and get used to them. Uh, so find ways that are faster than others and then get used to them. Um, there's really no wrong way to create anything in CAD, but you just really want to be as efficient as possible. So now that we created a 2D sketch of a square or a cross section of a cube, you can press the green checkmark button, and this kind of acts as a confirmation for your sketch. And now you should see that on your top view, you see like a kind of gray square. And now if you actually rotate, you should see that it is in fact 2D because it stays on that top plane and you don't have a cube yet. Again, this is not Blender. So now what do you do to get a cube? You actually have to make this 3D, right? You have to get this face and somehow add material to it to go out that way, right? So to do this, you have to use the extrude function, which is kind of this function right here where it's a white, well, it's the one that I'm pointing to. So what you do is you press on it, and then this is a menu that we will go over later, but you're, again, feel free to explore. And then you should see that if you hover over your gray rectangle, it should have like an orange outline to it, meaning that you can press it, right? And if you press it, now if you rotate into like a 3D view, you should see that you have like a faint cube-ish, right? Um, so to make the height smaller, to make it taller or shorter, you can just alter the depth here. You can do like 2. You also don't have to type in. You can just type in 2 because, as you remember, we set the workspace units to inches. So you can type in 2. You can type in 24. To actually go into like millimeters, what you can do is you can do 2 2 millimeters, and it's actually going to say 2 millimeters, and then back to 3. So again, feel free to mess around. We will get into the more intricate things of Part Studio in later videos, and it will be a lot of fun. Raj, anything else to add on?
No, I think that covered good basics of how to use Part Studio.
Yep. So see you guys in the next video, and yeah, thank you for watching.